Hello, my friends and family. My name's Trey, and today I've got another lesser-known book I would love to read from the Nag Hammadi library for you. And first, I wanted to start off by saying that anyone who watches this who might think that I am trying to spread an old-fashioned religion, check my post on YouTube for Dr. Litwa's video about syncretism and how all religions are syncretic. But you see, Gnostics, perhaps even with Yeshua in those days, were openly syncretic. In other words, like Osho or Rajneesh, they were openly taking from many different sources. They were not into dogma. They were interested in awakening, enlightenment, ascension. And so to say that what I share is, even though it comes from a book, that book was buried in the jar and discovered in 1945 for a reason. Because it was some of the most shocking, enlightening parts. Or, they took it out in the Council of Nicaea because they couldn't use it to control people. And so, again, I feel that although he was an Anunnaki or whatever, he was the most enlightened master to ever share with humanity the truth. And so this book is I'm going to read the introduction, but it's a pretty good book. I think you're going to enjoy it. So I was going to say that a good analogy would be to compare the fake geoengineered, cold, engineered sky where you have to wear 3 or 4 layers in a place like Santa Cruz, California on a June day, to your relationship with the sunshine when there's no or almost no geoengineering or whatever, when it's minimal. Your organic relationship with the sunshine and that healing and that all of those different things, but not just vitamin D, but all those nutrients that you get from the sunshine. Compare that to the false authority of being forced to wear layers. Well, that is probably a really good analogy for comparing having a real relationship with the Holy Ghost or the original Christ Sophia, the wisdom, the knowledge of the truth of the oneness of the Holy Ghost versus religion or Abrahamic religions would be more like chemtrails, And so to battle that, this modern form of weaponry of, space fence geoengineering as a template or a Wi-Fi medium for weather weapon attacks, if it's not one itself, which it obviously is if they did it, consistently. I'm going to fight that by reading this book that was discovered, buried in amongst these other books, buried in these jars. Almost the exact same years that MJ12 occurred. How about that? On the Origin of the World, introduced by Hans Bethke, translated by Hans Bethke and a few other people. The text of this tract is quite well preserved. It is a compendium of central Gnostic ideas, especially on cosmogony, anthropogony, and eschatology. Based on various sources and traditions, the treatise is in part presented in a semi-scholarly style with numerous etiologies and etymologies. It is in the form of an apologetic tract designed for public effectiveness in attracting adherents. So does that mean it was actually a little bit proselytizing for a Gnostic text book? Like maybe one of the most that ever kind of advertised at all by, exposing the demiurge. Earthly history, but also the presentation of the world above, including its development, are largely ignored. on the basis of the unnamed and unknown author's intention. Again, just like the other one I shared today, that many of these books were written by unknown authors because they, I guess they didn't want to be hung on a cross or whatever. So, on the basis of the unnamed and unknown author's intention stated at the beginning and then carried out through the text itself, scholarship is assigned the document the hypothetical title. In other words, the academics gave it this name, On the Origin of the World. There are good reasons to assume that we have to do with a conscious, well-planned literary composition without extensive secondary alterations, rather than with the product of a rather long process in the transmission of tradition. The early 4th century could possibly have been the time of composition, the remarkable mixture of various kinds of Jewish views, Manichaean elements, Christian ideas, Greek philosophical compositions, again, very syncretic, and figures of Greek or Hellenistic mythology, magic, and astrology, as well as a clear emphasis on Egyptian thought, all point to Alexandria as the probable place of origin for the Greek original. So it probably came right out of the amazing library of Alexandria. The process of translating, yada yada, I'm going to keep going. So, the author uses various sources and traditions, some Gnostic, some not, that are difficult to define more closely in terms of literary criticism, much less to reconstruct. So this dude had to go through some work putting this together. In the process, there are on occasion tensions, unevenness, and contradictions. So yeah, as I've pointed out in my commentary on the last transmissions, some of these things contradict because they were appealing to salvationists and patriarchy, etc. So, On the Origin of the World itself offers no closed system of its own, nor does it represent one of the known Gnostic systems. The author works with direct or indirect quotations, references. In other words, he's a true syncretic, I guess you could say. The cosmology and anthropology that follow upon the semi-philosophical beginning are in part oriented to Genesis 1-2, but beyond that to concepts such as known from the Jubilees to the Enoch. So maybe there's aliens in here. In general, characteristically Jewish influences dominate, so be forewarned if you're... The primordial history emphasizes the creation of an earthly man by the archons in connection with the doctrine of the primal man, which is, to be sure, is hard to understand due to the varying motifs. On the Origin of the World is oriented toward universal eschatology, and it is a very significant Gnostic work. We attain through this relatively long document a good insight into an educated author's thinking, work habits, and argumentation on fundamental themes. Furthermore, On the Origin of the World shows to what a high degree and with what freedom and authority a Gnostic author makes use of foreign, even non-Gnostic and heterogeneous thoughts. It thus attests the greater importance ascribed to the Gnostic stance toward the world and existence than to its mythological formation. It can really help us to understand the Gnostic worldview and debate with other intellectual currents, but also making use of them. So this is the book called On the Origin of the World. Seeing that everybody, gods of the world and mankind, says that nothing existed prior to chaos, I, in distinction to them, shall demonstrate that they are all mistaken, because they are not acquainted with the origin of chaos, nor with its root. Here is the demonstration. How well it suits all men on the subject of chaos to say that it is a kind of darkness. But in fact, it comes from a shadow, which has been called by the name darkness. And the shadow comes from a product that has existed since the beginning. It is moreover clear that it existed before chaos came into being, and that the latter is posterior to the first product. Let us therefore concern ourselves with the facts of the matter, and furthermore, with the first product, from which chaos was projected. And in this way, the truth will be clearly demonstrated. After the natural structure of the immortal beings had completely developed out of the infinite, a likeness that emanated from Pistis, it is called Sophia. It exercised volition and became a product resembling the primeval light. And immediately, her will manifested itself as a likeness of heaven, having an unimaginable magnitude. It was between the immortal beings and those things that came into being after them. Like she, Sophia, functioned as a veil, dividing mankind from the things above. Now the eternal realm of truth has no shadow outside it, for the limitless light is everywhere within it. But its exterior is shadow, which has been called by the name darkness. From it there appeared a force presiding over the darkness, and the forces that came into being subsequent to them called the shadow the limitless chaos. From it every kind of divinity sprouted up, together with the entire place, so that also shadow is posterior to the first product. It was in the abyss that shadow appeared, deriving from the aforementioned pistis. Then shadow perceived that there was something mightier than it, and felt envy. And when it had become pregnant of its own accord, suddenly it engendered jealousy. Since that day, the principle of jealousy amongst all the eternal realms and their worlds has been apparent. Now, as far as that jealousy, it was found to be an abortion without any spirit in it. Like a shadow, it came into existence in a vast, watery substance. Then, the bile that had come into being out of the shadow was thrown into a part of the chaos. Since that day, a watery substance has become apparent, and what sank within it flowed away, being visible in chaos as with the woman giving birth to a child. All her superfluities flow out. Just so, matter came into being out of shadow and was projected apart. And it did not depart from chaos. Rather, matter was in chaos, being in a part of it. And when these things had come to pass, then Pistis came and appeared over the matter of chaos, which had been expelled like an aborted fetus, since there was no spirit in it. For all of it was limitless darkness and bottomless water. Now when Pistis saw what had resulted from her defect, she became disturbed, and the disturbance appeared as a fearful product. It rushed to her in the chaos. She turned to it and blew into her face. She turned to it and blew into its face in the abyss, which is below all the heavens. And when Pistis Sophia desired to cause the thing that had no spirit to be formed into a likeness and to rule over matter and over all her forces, there appeared for the first time a ruler out of the waters, lion-like in appearance, androgynous, having great authority within him, and ignorant of whence he had come into being. Now when Pistis Sophia saw him moving about in the depth of the waters, she said to him, "Child, pass through to here." whose equivalent is Yaldabaoth. Since that day there appeared the principle of verbal expression which reached the gods and angels and mankind. And what came into being as a result of verbal expression, the gods and the angels and the mankind finished. Now as for the ruler, Yaldabaoth, he is ignorant of the force of pistis. He did not see her face. Rather, he saw in the water the likeness that spoke with him. And because of that voice, he called himself Yaldabaoth. But Ariel is what the perfect call him, for he was like a lion. Now, when he had come to have authority over matter, Pistis Sophia withdrew up to her light. When the ruler saw his magnitude, and it was only himself that he saw nothing else except for water and darkness. Then he supposed that it was he alone who existed. All of his things were completed by verbal expression. It appeared as a spirit moving to and fro upon the waters. And when that spirit appeared, the ruler set apart the watery substance, and what was dry was divided into another place. And from matter he made for himself an abode, and he called it heaven. And from matter the ruler made a footstool, and he called it earth. Next, the ruler had a thought, consistent with his nature, and by means of verbal expression he created an androgyne. He opened his mouth and cooed to him. When his eyes had been opened, he looked at his father, and he said to him, "Ee." Then his father called him Iao, Yao. Now he created the second son. He cooed to him, and he opened his eyes and said to his father, "Eh." And his father called him Eloi. Eloi. L-O-A-I. Now he created the third son. He cooed to him, and he opened his eyes and said to his father, As. His father called him Astaphaeos. These are the three sons of their father. 7 appeared in chaos androgynous. They have their masculine names and their feminine names. The feminine name is pronoia, forethought. Sambathus, which is weak. And his son is called Yao. His feminine name is lordship. Sabaoth, his feminine name is deity. Adonias, his feminine name is kingship. Eloeos, his feminine name is jealousy. Oreos, his feminine name is wealth. And Astaphaeos, his feminine name is Sophia, wisdom. These are the 7 forces of the 7 heavens of chaos, and they were born androgynous, consistent with the immortal pattern that existed before them, according to the wish of Pistis, so that the likeness of what had existed since the beginning might reign to the end. You will find the effect of these names and the force of the male entities in the archangelic book of the prophet Moses, and the names of the female entities in the first book of Norea. Now the prime parent, Yaldabaoth, since he possessed great authorities, created heavens for each of his offspring through verbal expression, created them beautiful as dwelling places, and in each heaven he created great glories, 7 times excellent. So yeah, there could be something there that appears to be really beautiful. Thrones and mansions and temples, and also chariots and virgin spirits up to an invisible one, and their glories. Each one has these in his heaven. mighty armies of gods and lords and angels and archangels, countless myriads, so that they may serve. The account of these matters you will find in a precise matter in the first account of Oraia, O-R-A-I-A. And they were completed from heaven to as far up as the sixth heaven, namely that of Sophia. The heaven and his earth were destroyed by the troublemaker that was below them all. And the six heavens shook violently, for the forces of chaos knew who it was that had destroyed the heaven that was below them. And when Pistis knew about the breakage resulting from the disturbance, she sent forth her breath and bound them and cast him down into Tartaros. Since that day, the heaven, along with its earth, has consolidated itself through Sophia, the daughter of Yaldabaoth, who is below them all. So this must be, a different one. It's, lower Sophia. So now when the heavens had consolidated themselves along with their forces and all their administration, the prime parent became insolent, getting angry again, and he was honored by all the army of angels, and all the gods and their angels gave blessing and honor to him. Wonder what side they were on, huh? And for his part he was delighted and continually boasted, saying to them, I have no need of anyone. It is I who am God, and there are no other one that exists apart from me. And when he said this, he sinned against all the immortal beings who gave answer that he was talking to there, and they laid it to his charge. Then when Pistis saw the impiety of the chief ruler, she was filled with anger. She was invisible. She said, You are mistaken, Samael, that is, blind God. There is an immortal man of light who has been in existence before you and who will appear among your modeled forms. He will trample you to scorn, just as potter's clay is pounded. And you will descend to your mother, the abyss, along with all those who belong to you. For the consummation of your works, the entire deficit that has become visible out of the truth will be abolished, and it will cease to be and will be like what has never been. Saying this, Pistis revealed her likeness of her greatness in the waters. In so doing, she withdrew up to her light. Now when Sabaoth, the son of Yaldabaoth, heard the voice of Pistis, he sang praises to her. And he condemned the father, Yaldabaoth, at the world of Pistis. And he praised her because she had instructed them about the immortal man and his light. Then Pistis Sophia stretched out her finger and poured upon him some light from her light, to be a condemnation of his father. Then when Sabaoth was illuminated, he received great authority amongst all the forces of chaos. Since that day, he has been called Lord of the Forces. Now, I wonder if this was a reference to when Yeshua was enlightened by the Christ Gnosis directly from Sophia, because someone put a comment on an Odyssey video that said Jesus is Sabaoth. So since that day, he has been called Lord of the Forces. He hated his father, the darkness, and his mother, the abyss, and loathed his sister, the thought of the prime parent, which moved to and fro upon the waters. And because of his light, all the authorities of chaos were jealous of him. And when they had been disturbed, they made a great war in the heavens, in the seven heavens. Then when Pistis Sophia had seen the war, she dispatched 7 archangels to Sabaoth from her light. They snatched him up to the 7th heaven. They stood before him as attendants. Furthermore, she sent him 3 more archangels and established the kingdom for him over everyone, so that he might dwell above the 12 gods of chaos. Now when Sabaoth had taken up the place of repose and returned for his repentance, Pistis also gave him her daughter Zoe life, together with great authority, so that she might instruct him about all things that exist in the 8th heaven. And he has and as he had authority, he made himself first of all a mansion. It is a huge, magnificent, 7 times as great as all of those that exist in the 7 heavens. And before his mansion he created a throne which was huge and was upon a 4-faced chariot called cherubim. Now the cherubim had 8 shapes per each of the 4 corners: lion forms and calf forms and human forms and eagle forms, so that all the forms amount to 64 forms. And he created 7 archangels that stand before it. He is the 8th and has authority. All the forms amount to 72. Furthermore, from this chariot of the 72 gods took shape. They took shape so that they might rule over the 72 languages of the peoples. And by the throne he created other serpent-like angels called seraphim, which praise him at all times. Thereafter he created a congregation, ecclesia of angels, thousands of myriads, numberless, which had resembled the congregation in the 8th heaven. Maybe Sabaoth was a different person than Yeshua. And a firstborn called Israel, which is the man that sees God, and another being called Jesus Christ. That answers it. Who resembles the Savior above in the 8th heaven, and who sits at his right upon the reserved throne. This could have been reserved. It's referring to something like the demiurge. And at his left there sits the Virgin of the Holy Spirit upon a throne and glorifying him. And the 7 virgins stand before her, possessing 30 harps and psalteries and trumpets, glorifying him. And all the armies of the angels glorify him, and they bless him. Now where he sits upon a throne of light within a great cloud that covers him, and there was no one with him in the cloud except Sophia, the daughter of Pistis, instructing him about all the things that exist in the 8th heaven, so that the likenesses of those things might be created, in order that his reign might endure under the consummation of the heavens of chaos and their forces. Now Pistis Sophia set him apart from the darkness and summoned him to her right, and the prime parent she put at her left. Since that day, right has been called justice, and left called wickedness. Now, because of this, they all received a realm, cosmos, and the congregation of justice and wickedness stand upon a creature, something all. Then when the prime parent of chaos saw his son Sabaoth and the glory that he was in, and perceived that he was the greatest of all authorities of chaos, he envied him. This also could have been, Enki and Marduk. And having become wrathful, he engendered death out of his death. And he, viz. Death, was established over the 6th heaven. For Sabaoth had snatched from there. Sabaoth had been snatched up from the 6th heaven. And thus the number of the 6 authorities of chaos was achieved. Then death, being androgynous, mingled with his nature and begot 7 androgynous offspring. These are the names of the male ones: jealousy, wrath, tears, sighing, suffering, lamentation, bitter weeping. And these are the names of the female ones: wrath, pain, lust, sighing, curse, bitterness, quarrelsomeness. They had intercourse with one another, and each one begot 7, so that they amount to 49 androgynous demons. You can see why they took all this out of the Bible, because this heals you to know the truth on this. Their names and their effects you will find in the book of Solomon, that they're all demons. In the presence of these, Zoe, who was with Sabbath, created 7 good androgynous forces. These are the names of the male ones: the unenvious, the blessed, the joyful, the true, the unbegrudging, the beloved, the trustworthy. Also, as regards the female ones, these are their names: peace, gladness, rejoicing, blessedness, truth, love, faith, pistis. And from these there are many good and innocent spirits. These are what a lot of people think of as guardian angels. When you're in these, when you imbibe these kind of essences, they will serve the good, your well-being and your healing, your ascension. Their influences and their effects you will find in the configurations of the fate of heaven that is beneath the 12. And having seen the likeness of Pistis in the waters, the prime parent grieved very much, especially when he heard her voice, like the first voice that it had called to him out of the waters. And when he knew that it was she who had given a name to him, he sighed. He was ashamed on account of his transgression. And when he had come to know in truth that an immortal man of light had been existing before him, he was greatly disturbed. For he had previously said to all the gods and their angels, "It is I who am God. No other one exists apart from me." For he had been afraid they might know that another had been in existence before him and might condemn him. But he, being devoid of understanding, scoffed at the condemnation and acted recklessly. He said, "If anything has existed before me, let it appear, so that we may see its light." And immediately, behold, light came out of the 8th heaven above and passed through all of the heavens of the earth. When the prime parent saw that the light was beautiful as it radiated, he was amazed, and he was greatly ashamed. As that light appeared, a human likeness appeared within it, very wonderful. And no one knew it except for the prime parent and Pronoia, who was with him. Yet its light appeared to all the forces of the heavens. Because of this, they were all troubled by it. Then, when Pronoia saw that emissary, she became enamored of him. But he hated her because she was on the darkness. But she desired to embrace him, and she was not able to. When she was unable to assuage her love, she poured out her light upon the earth. Since that day, the emissary has been called Atom of Light, whose rendering is the luminous man of blood. And the earth spread over him, Holy Adaman, whose rendering is the holy land of adamantine. Since that day, all the authorities have honored the blood of the Virgin, and the earth was purified on account of the blood of the Virgin. But most of all, the water was purified through the likeness of Christ Sophia, who had appeared to the prime parent in the waters. Justly, then, it has been said, through the waters, the holy water, since it vivifies the all, purifies it. Hence the tradition of baptism and the Gnostics or the Essenes daily, daily water baths in wild water. On that first blood, Eros appeared, being androgynous. His masculinity is hemeritis, i.e. hemeros, being fire from the light. His femininity, that is with him, a soul of blood, is from the stuff of pronoia. He is very lovely in his beauty, having a charm beyond all the creatures of chaos. Then all the gods and their angels, when they behold Eros, became enamored of him. He was the most beautiful god they'd ever seen, or son of a god. And appearing in all of them, he set them all afire. Just as from a single lamp many lamps are lit, and one and the same light is there, but the lamp is not diminished. And in this way, Eros became dispersed in all the created beings of chaos, and was not diminished. Just as from the midpoint of light and darkness, Eros appeared at the midpoint of the angels and mankind. The sexual union of Eros was consummated, so out of the earth the primal pleasure blossomed. The woman followed earth, and marriage followed woman. Birth followed marriage. Dissolution followed birth. After that, Eros, the grapevine, sprouted up out of that blood, which has been shed over the earth. The fertility ritual. Because of this, those who drink of it conceive of the desire of sexual union. After the grapevine, a fig tree and a pomegranate tree sprouted up from the earth, together with the rest of the trees, all species having within them their seed from the seed of the authorities and their angels. In other words, they all had those certain parents. Then justice created paradise, being beautiful and being outside of the orbit of the moon and the orbit of the sun, in the land of wantonness, in the east, in the midst of the stones. And desire is in the midst of the beautiful, appetizing trees. Wow, I wonder what that's referring to. And the tree of eternal life is as it appeared by God's will to the north of paradise, so that it might make eternal the souls of the pure, who shall come forth from the mottled forms of poverty at the consummation of the age. Wow. Now the color of the tree of life is like the sun, and its branches are beautiful. Its leaves are like those of the cypress. Its fruit is like a bunch of grapes when it is white. Its height goes as far as heaven. And next to it, the tree of acquaintance, having the strength of God. Its glory is like the moon when fully radiant, and its branches are beautiful. Its leaves are like fig leaves. Its fruit is like a good appetizing date. And this tree is to the north of paradise, so that it might arouse the souls from the torpor of the demons, in order that they might approach the tree of life and eat of its fruit, and so condemn the authorities and their angels. Wow, man, I'm loving this, man. The effect of this tree is described in the sacred book, to wit, it is you who are the tree of acquaintance, which is in paradise, from which, and this translator said meant acquaintance meant gnosis, from which the first man ate, and which he opened his mind, and he loved his female counterpart, and condemn the other alien likenesses and loathe them. Now after it, the olive tree sprouted up, which was to purify the kings and the high priests of righteousness who were to appear in the last days. Since the olive tree appeared out of the light, wow, out of the first Adam for the sake of the unguent that they were to receive. That means like the divine sacrament. And the first soul loved Eros, which was with her, and poured her blood upon him and upon the earth. And out of that blood, the rose first sprouted up. Wow, man, this book really mixes in a bunch of different myths. Out of the thorn bush, to be a source of joy for the light that was to appear in the bush. Not only did I want to corroborate the syncretic quality of this library, but also what a wonderful job the writers of these books and the people who put together this one book did, and sharing many types of wisdom here, or at least several. So out of the blood she poured upon the earth, the rose first sprouted up, and out of the earth and out of the thorn bush, to be a source of joy for the light that was to appear in the bush. Moreover, after this, the beautiful, good-smelling flowers sprouted up from the earth, different kinds from every single virgin of the daughters of Pronoia. There's actually, I feel there is a lot of healing powers in the rose, and when they have, even just smelling it can cause a healing reaction. And when they had become enamored of Eros, poured out their blood upon him and upon the earth. After these, every plant sprouted up from the earth, different kinds, containing the seed of the authorities and their angels. This is some definite pagan. This is definitely a pagan myth here. After these, the authorities created out, whether it's true or not. After these, the authorities created out of the waters all species of beast, and the reptiles and birds, different kinds, containing the seed and the authorities and their angels. But before all of these, when he had appeared on the first day, he remained upon the earth something like 2 days, and left the lower Pronoia in heaven and ascended to his light. And immediately darkness covered all the universe. Now, when she wished, the Sophia, who was in the lower heaven, received authority from Pistis and fashioned great luminous bodies and all the stars. And she put them in the sky to shine upon the earth and to render temporal signs and seasons and years and months and days and nights and moments and so forth. And in this way, the entire region upon the sky was adorned. Now when Adam of Light conceived the wish to enter his light, the eighth heaven, he was unable to do so because of the poverty that had mingled with the light. Then he created for himself a vast eternal realm, and within that eternal realm he created 6 eternal realms, and their adornments, 6 in number, that were 7 times better than the heavens of chaos and their adornments. Now all of these eternal realms and their adornments exist within the infinity that is between the 8th heaven and the chaos below it, being counted with the universe that belongs to poverty. If you want to know the arrangement of these, you will find it written in the 7th universe of the prophet Hierelius. And before Adam of Light had withdrawn into the chaos, the authorities saw him and laughed at the prime parent because he had lied when he said, "It is I who am God, no one exists before me." When they came to him, they said, "Is this not the God who ruined our work? He answered and said, "Yes. If you do not want him to be able to ruin our work, come let us create a man out of earth, according to the image of our body and according to the likeness of this being," Adam of light, "to serve us, so that when he, Adam of light, sees his likeness, he might become enamored of it. No longer will he ruin our work. Rather, we shall make those who are born out of the light our servants for all duration of this eternal realm." Now, all of this came to pass, according to the forethoughts of Pistis, in order that man should appear after his likeness and should condemn them because of their mottled form. And their mottled form became an enclosure of the light. Then the authorities received the acquaintance, or gnosis, necessary to create man. Sophia Zoe, she who is with Sabaoth, had anticipated them, and she laughed at their decision, for they are blind. Against their own interest they ignorantly created him, and they do not realize what they are about to do. The reason she anticipated them and made her own man, or the modern human being, first was in order that he might instruct them, or that form of it, their modeled form, how to despise them and how to escape from them. Does that mean that Christ Sophia remodeled us so that we could hate the matrix and the fake, or Yaldabaoth, and learn how to escape it? Now, the production of the instructor came about as follows. When Sophia let fall a droplet of light, it flowed onto the water, and immediately a human being appeared, being androgynous. That droplet she molded first as a female body. Afterwards, using the body, she molded it in the likeness of the mother which had appeared. And he finished it in 12 months. An androgynous human being was produced, whom the Greeks call hermaphrodites, and whose mother the Hebrews call Eve of life, Eve of Zoe, namely the female instructor of life. Her offspring is the creature that is Lord. Afterwards, the authorities called it beast, so that it might lead astray their modeled creatures. The interpretation of the beast is the instructor, for it was found to be the wisest of all beings. So, yeah, the Gnostics were calling the matrix, the fakes, the forced society of death, the beast, before anyone else, you know. Now, Eve is the first virgin. The interpretation of the beast is the instructor, for it was found to be the wisest of all beings. Now, Eve is the first virgin, the one who, without a husband, bore her first offspring. It is she who served as her own midwife. For this reason she is held to have said, "It is I who am the part of my mother, and it is I who am the mother. It is I who am the wife. It is I who am the virgin. It is I who am the pregnant. It is I who am the midwife. It is I who am the one that comforts pains of travail. It is my husband who bore me, and it is I who am his mother. And it is he who is my father and my Lord. And it is he who is my force. What he desires, he says with reason. I am in the process of becoming. Yet I have been born as a man as Lord. Now these through the will, etc., the souls that were going to enter the molded forms of the authorities were manifested to Sabaoth and his Christ. And regarding these, the holy voice said, "Multiply and improve. Be Lord over all creatures." And it is they who were taken captive according to their destinies by the prime parent. And thus they were shut into the prisons of the modeled forms. or at the consummation of the age. And at that time, the prime parent then rendered an opinion concerning man to those who were with him. Then each of them cast his sperm into the midst of the navel of the earth. Since that day, the 7 rulers have fashioned man with his body resembling their body, but his likeness resembling the man that it appeared to them. His modeling took place by parts, one at a time. And their leader fashioned the brain and the nervous system. Afterwards, he appeared as prior to him. He became a soul-endowed man, and he was called Adam, that is, father, according to the name of the one that existed before him. And when they had finished Adam, he abandoned him as an inanimate vessel, since he had taken form like an abortion, and that no spirit was in him. Regarding this thing, which when the chief ruler remembered the saying of Pistis, he was afraid lest the true man enter his modeled form and become its lord. For this reason, he left his modeled form 40 days without soul, and he withdrew and abandoned it. Now on the 40th day, Sophia Zoe sent her breath into Adam, who had no soul. He began to move upon the ground, and he could not stand up. Then when the 7 rulers came, they saw him and were greatly disturbed. They went to him and seized him, and he, the chief ruler, said to the breath within him, "Who are you? And whence did you come hither?" It answered and said, "I have come from the force of the man for the destruction of your work." When they heard, they glorified him, since he gave them respite from the fear and the anxiety in which they found themselves. Wow. Then they called that day rest, inasmuch as they had rested from toil. And when they saw that Adam could not stand up, they were glad. And they took him and put him in paradise. And they withdrew up to their heavens. After the day of rest, Sophia sent her daughter Zoe, being called Eve, as an instructor, in order that she might make Adam, who had no soul, arise, so that those whom he should engender might become containers of light. When Eve saw her male counterpart prostrate, she had pity upon him and said, "Adam, become alive! Arise from the earth!" Immediately her word became accomplished fact. For Adam, having arisen, suddenly opened his eyes. When he saw her, he said, "You shall be called Mother of the Living, for it is you who have given me life." Then the authorities were informed, and their modeled form was alive and had risen, that their modeled form was alive and had risen, and they were greatly troubled. They sent 7 archangels to see what had happened. They came to Adam. When they saw Eve talking to him, they said to one another, "What sort of thing is this luminous woman? For she resembles that likeness which appeared to us in the light. Now come, let us lay hold of her and cast our seed into her, so that when she becomes soiled, she may not be able to ascend into her light. Rather, those whom she bears will be under our charge. But let us not tell Adam, for he is not one of us. He's of the light. Rather, let us bring a deep sleep over him, and let us instruct him in his sleep to the effect that she came from his rib, in order that that wife may obey, and that he may be Lord over him." Okay, triple wow. The archons, the dark angels, whispered in Adam's ear that she was from his rib. That's where this idea came from. Of according to this book. Then Eve, being a force, laughed at their decision. She put mist into their eyes and secretly left her likeness with Adam. She entered the tree of acquaintance, or gnosis, and remained there. And they pursued her, and she revealed to them that she had gone into the tree and become a tree. Then, entering a great state of fear, the blind creatures fled. The blind, dark gods had to run away. Afterwards, when they had recovered from the daze, they came to Adam, and seeing the likeness of this woman with him, they were greatly disturbed, thinking it was she that was the true Eve. And they acted rashly. They came up to her and seized her and cast their seed upon her. They did so wickedly, defiling not only in natural ways, but also in foul ways. Defiling first the seal of her voice that had spoken with them, saying, "What is it that exists before you?" Intending to defile those who might say at their consummation of the age that they had been born of the true man through verbal expression. And they erred, not knowing that it was their own body that they had defiled. It was the likeness that the authorities and their angels defiled in every way. First, she was pregnant with Abel by the first ruler. And it was by the 7 authorities and their angels that she bore the other offspring. And all this came to pass according to the forethought of the prime parent, so that the first mother might bear within her every seed, being mixed and being fitted to the fate of the universe and its configurations and to justice. A prearranged plan came into effect regarding Eve, so that the modeled forms of the authorities might become enclosures of the light, whereupon it would condemn them through their modeled forms. So now the first light, Adam, is spirit, Adam of light, is spirit endowed and appeared on the first day. The second Adam is soul endowed and appeared on the sixth day, which is called Aphrodite. The third Adam, a creature of the earth, that is the man of the law, and he appeared on the 8th day. Tranquility of poverty, which is called Sunday. And the progeny of the earthly Adam became numerous and was completed and produced within itself every kind of scientific information of the soul endowed Adam. But all were in ignorance. Next, let me say that once the rulers had seen him and the female creature who was with him erring ignorantly like beasts, they were very glad. Why do you think that is? Because the archons enjoy all, it creates the loose, When they learned that the immortal man was not going to neglect them, rather that they would even have to fear the female creature that had turned into a tree, they were disturbed and said, "Perhaps this is the true man, this being who has brought a fog upon us and has taught us that she who was soiled is like him, and so we shall be conquered." Then the 7 of them together laid plans. They came to Adam and Eve timidly. They said to him, "The fruit of all the trees created for you in paradise shall be eaten. But as for the tree of Gnosis, control yourselves and do not eat from it. If you eat from the tree of acquaintance, you will die." And to this day, obedient churchians still think it's going to kill them if they know the real truth. Having imparted great fear to them, they withdrew up to their authorities. Then came the wisest of all creatures, who was called Beast. And when he saw the likeness of their mother, Eve, he said to her, "What did God say to you? Was it, 'Do not eat from the tree of acquaintance,' or Gnosis?" She said, "He said, not only do not eat from it, but do not touch it, lest you die." He said to her, "Do not be afraid. In death you shall not die." For he knows that when you eat from it, your intellect will become sober, and you will come to be like gods, recognizing the difference that obtains between evil men and good ones. Indeed, it was in jealousy that he said this to you, so that you would not eat from it. Now Eve had confidence in the words of the instructor. This reptile might have actually been telling her the truth. She gazed at the tree and saw that it was beautiful and appetizing and liked it. She took some of its fruit and ate it. And she gave some also to her husband, and he too ate it. Then their intellect became open, for when they had eaten, the light of acquaintance had shone upon them. When they clothed themselves with shame, they knew that they were naked of acquaintance. When they became sober, they saw that they were naked and became enamored of one another. I find it fascinating that the word sober is used several times here. Was God drugging them? When they saw that the ones who had modeled them had the form of beasts, they loathed them. They were very aware. Then when the rulers knew that they had broken their commandments, they entered paradise and came to Adam and Eve with earthquake and great threatening, and to see the effect of the aid. Then Adam and Eve trembled greatly and hid under the trees in paradise. Then the rulers did not know where they were and said, "Adam, where are you?" He said, "I am here. For through fear of you I hid, being ashamed." And they said to him ignorantly, "Who told you about the shame with which you clothed yourself? Unless you have eaten from that tree." He said, "The woman whom you gave me, it is she that gave to me, and I ate." Then they said to the latter, "What is this that you have done?" She answered and said, "It is the instructor that urged me on, and I ate." Then the rulers came up to the instructor, the snake, supposedly. Their eyes became misty because of him, and they could not do anything to him. They cursed him, since they were powerless. Afterwards, they came up to the woman and cursed her and her offspring. After the woman, they cursed Adam and cursed the land because of him, and the crops, and all things that they had created they cursed. They have no blessing. Good cannot result from evil. From that day, the authorities knew that truly there was something mightier than they. They recognized only that their commandments had not been kept. Great jealousy was brought into the world solely because of the immortal man. Now, when the rulers saw that their Adam had entered into an alien state of acquaintance, they desired to test him, and they gathered together all the domestic animals and the wild beasts of the earth and the birds of heaven, and brought them to Adam to see what he would call them. when he saw them, he gave names to their creatures. They became troubled because Adam had recovered from all the trials. They assembled and laid plans, and they said, "Behold Adam, he has come to be like one of us, so that now he knows the difference between the light and the darkness. Now, perhaps, he will be deceived, as in the case of the tree of acquaintance, and also will come to the tree of life and eat from it, and become immortal, and become Lord, and despise us, and disdain us, and all our glory. Then he will denounce us along with our universe. Come, let us expel him from paradise down to the land from which he was taken, so that henceforth he might not be able to recognize anything better than we can." And so they expelled Adam from paradise along with his wife. They weren't going to get any loose if they kept letting him do what he was doing. And this deed that they had done was not enough for them. Rather, they were afraid. They went into the tree of life and surrounded it with great fearful things. Fiery living creatures called cherubim. And they put a flaming sword in their midst, fearfully twirling at all times, so that no earthly being might ever enter that place. Thereupon, since the rulers were envious of Adam, they wanted to diminish their lifespans. They could not because of fate, which had been fixed since the beginning, for to each had been allotted a lifespan of 1,000 years according to the course of the luminous bodies. But although the rulers could not do this, each of the evildoers took away 10 years. And all this lifespan, which remained, amounted to 930 years. And these are in pain and weakness and evil distraction. And so life has turned out to be from that day until the consummation of the age. Then when Sophia Zoe saw that the rulers of the darkness had laid upon a curse upon her counterparts, she was indignant. And coming out of the first heaven with the full power, she chased those rulers out of their heavens and cast them down into the sinful world, so that they should dwell in the form of evil spirits or demons upon the earth. That's how a lot of these archons got down here to harass us incessantly when we're being ignorant of our thoughts, if they can, and our actions. So, and a bunch of other things. They're one of the few missing fragments in this beautiful book, so that in their world it might pass the 1,000 years in paradise. A soul-endowed living creature called Phoenix. It kills itself and brings itself to life as a witness to the judgment against them. For they did wrong to Adam and his generation, and unto the consummation of the age. In other words, to all the humans that have lived ever since they did this to us. There are 3 men, and also his posterities unto the consummation of the world, the spirit endowed of eternity. I think it was saying there were 3 who were eternal enlightened masters that reincarnated. And the soul endowed, like Babaji and Yeshua, and the soul endowed and the earthly. Likewise, the 3 phoenixes in paradise, the first is immortal. The second lives 1,000 years. As for the third, it is written in the sacred book that it is consumed. So too, there are 3 baptisms. The first is the spiritual, the second is by fire, the third is by water. Just as the phoenix appears as a witness concerning the angels, so the case of the water, Hydri, in Egypt. which has been a witness to those going down into the baptism of a true man. The two bulls in Egypt possess a mystery, the sun and the moon, being a witness to Sabaoth, namely, that over them Sophia received the universe. From the day she made the sun and the moon, she put a seal upon her heaven unto eternity. And the worm that has been born out of the phoenix is a human being as well. It is written in Psalms 91 concerning it. Seems to be the only Bible quote in this whole book, that the just man will blossom like a phoenix. And the phoenix first appears in a living state and dies and rises again, being a sign of what has become apparent at the consummation of the age. It was only in Egypt that these great signs appeared, nowhere else, as an indication that it is similar to God's paradise. Let us return to the aforementioned rulers so that we may offer some explanation of them. Now, when the 7 rulers were cast down from their heavens onto the earth, they made for themselves angels, numerous, demonic, to serve them. And the latter instructed mankind in many kinds of error, and magic, and potions, and worship of idols, and spilling of blood, and altars, and temples, and sacrifices, and libations to all of the spirits of the earth, having their co-worker Fate, who came into existence by the concord between the gods of injustice and justice. And thus, when the world had come into being, it distractedly erred at all times. For all men upon earth worshipped the spirits or daemons from the creation to the consummation of the age, both the angels of righteousness and the men of unrighteousness. Thus did the world come to exist in distraction, in ignorance, and in stupor. They all erred until the appearance, or parousia, of the true man. Let this suffice. Maybe that's why they called Christ the Son of Man, because he was the first one to say, look here, here's the truth, the real truth. Let this suffice so as far as the matter goes. Now we shall proceed to the consideration of our world, so that we may, as it was, 2,000 years ago, or 1,700 years ago, so that we may accurately finish the description of its structure and management. Then it will become obvious how belief in the unseen realm, which has been apparent from creation down to the consummation of the age, was discovered. And by the way, the anonymous writer of this sure did an amazing job in, corroborating and showing us how similar it was then. I come therefore to the main points regarding the immortal man. I shall speak of all things that belong to him, explaining how they happen to be here. When a multitude of human beings had come into existence through the parentage of the Adam who had been fashioned and out of matter, and when the world had already become full, the rulers were master over it. That is, they kept it restrained by ignorance. There it is again. For what reason? For the following. Since the immortal Father knows that a deficiency of truth came into being amongst the eternal realms and their universe when he wished to bring to naught the rulers of perdition through the creatures they had modeled, he sent your likenesses down into the world of perdition, namely, the blessed little innocent spirits. They are not alien to acquaintance. For all acquaintance is vested in one angel who appeared before them. He is not without power in the company of the Father. And he gave them acquaintance, Christ. Whenever they appear in the world of perdition, immediately, and first of all, they reveal the pattern of imperishability as a condemnation of the rulers and their forces. Thus, when the blessed beings appeared in forms modeled by authorities, they were envied. And out of envy, the authorities mixed their seed with them in hopes of polluting them. They could not. Then, when the blessed beings appeared in luminous form, they appeared in various ways. And each one of them, starting out in his land, revealed his kind of acquaintance to the visible church, constituted of the modeled forms of perdition. The church was found to contain all kinds of seed because of the seed of the authorities that had mixed in with it. Just like their teachings. Then the Savior created, or Christ Yeshua created all of these, Gnostic, all of these healing and saving wisdom teachings. To poke holes in the forced reincarnation. He created the greatest ascension teachings of them all, and the spirits of those, and the spirits of these teachings are manifestly superior, being blessed and varying in election. And also, he created many other beings who had no king and are superior to everyone that was before them. Consequently, 4 races exist. There are 3 that belong to the kings of the 8th heaven. But the 4th race is kingless. And perfect. Being the highest of all. For these shall enter the holy place of their Father, and they will gain rest and repose and eternal, unspeakable glory and unending joy. Or I could say, go back to the mother, go back to the freedom. Moreover, they are kings within the mortal domain, in that they are immortal. They will condemn the gods of chaos and their forces. Now the word, or logos, that is superior to all beings, was sent for this purpose alone, that he might proclaim the unknown. He said, 2 Bible quotes. He said in Mark 44:22, there is nothing hidden that is not apparent, and what has not been recognized will be recognized. And these were sent to make known what is hidden, and the 7 authorities of chaos and their impiety. And thus they were condemned to death. So when all the perfect appeared in the forms modeled by the rulers, and when they revealed the incomparable truth, they put to shame all the wisdom of the gods, and their fate was found to be a condemnation, and their force dried up. Their lordship was dissolved. Their forethought became emptiness along with their glory. Before the consummation of the age, the whole place will shake with great thundering. Then the rulers will be sad, and knowing that they're flunking out and messing up because their tyranny will never work. All this is leading to their death. Knowing that, the angels will mourn for their mankind, and the demons will weep over their seasons, and their mankind will wail and scream at their death. Then the age will begin, and they will be disturbed. Their kings will be intoxicated with the fiery sword, and they will wage war against one another, so that the earth is intoxicated with bloodshed, and the seas will be disturbed by these wars. Then the sun will become dark, and the moon will cause its light to cease. The stars of the sky will cancel their circuits, and a great clap of thunder will come out of a great force that is above, and all the forces of chaos where the firmament of the woman is situated. Having created the first product, she will put away the wise fire of intelligence and clothe herself with witless wrath. Could this be Kali coming back? Then she will pursue the gods of chaos, whom she created along with the prime parent. She will cast them down into the abyss. They will be obliterated because of their wickedness, for they will come to be like volcanoes and consume one another until they perish at the hand of the prime parent. When he has destroyed them, he will turn against himself and destroy himself until he ceases to exist. All their heavens will fall one upon the next, and there the ruler's forces will be consumed by fire. Their eternal realms, too, will be overturned, and the prime parent's heaven, will fall and break in two. In other words, Yaldabaoth's will fall down upon the waters and all of his stuff that he made and support them, and they will all fall into the abyss, and the abyss will be overturned. The light will be in total and complete victory over any kind of power beyond necessary shadow of the forces of the darkness and obliterate it. And it will be like something that has never been. And the product to which the darkness had been posterior will dissolve. And the deficiency will be plucked out by the root and thrown down into the darkness. And the light will withdraw up to its root. And the glory of the unbegotten will appear. And it will fill all the eternal realm. When the prophecy and the account of those that are king becomes known and is fulfilled by those who are called perfect, those who, in contrast, have not become perfect in the unbegotten Father will receive their glory in the realms and in the kingdoms of the immortals, but they will never enter the kingless realms. For everyone must go to the place from which he has come. Indeed, by his acts and his acquaintance, each person will make his nature known.